Assalamu alaikum. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about other punctuation marks, the semicolons and the colons. So let's look at the semicolon. A semicolon is used to connect two sentences which are not related grammatically, but they are related in thought and ideas. So it's different from the comma in the sense, if you remember the previous lesson, I said that you can't use a comma to connect two sentences which are related in meaning. There has to be a grammatical reason for you to use a comma. But a semicolon is different in the sense that there doesn't have to be a grammatical reason, but you can just use it between two sentences which are related in meaning. You can look at this example. Some people write with the word processor, semicolon. That's a semicolon if you don't know what it is. So you have like a period on top and a comma underneath the period. Others write with a pen or a pencil. So there is no connector between these two sentences. You don't have anything like, for example, like while. While some people write with the word processor, others write with a pen or a pencil. You don't have that. There's no while. There is no connector. But still, we're using a semicolon. So one thing which is very important here that I have to say is that you could actually remove the semicolon and use a full stop, use a period. So the rule is in every situation where you use a semicolon, you could remove it and use a period, and the grammar will not be different. It will not be wrong. It will be the same. Let's take one more example. Call me tomorrow, semicolon. You can give me an answer then. So the two sentences are related in meaning, and that's why we're using a semicolon. And one more time, you can replace the semicolon with a period, a full stop. Okay, now there's another reason for you to use the semicolon. That's when you have words like however, therefore, for example, for instance, and so on. We call these words conjunctive adverbs, and there is a whole lesson about these words in this course. So if you find any of these words, you're supposed to use a semicolon before it and a comma after it. Like the example, bring any two items, semicolon, however, comma, sleeping bags and tents are in short supply. So you can see that? Yeah, one more time, you could remove the semicolon here and use a full stop instead. Okay, here's another example. There has been a dramatic increase in pollution in our country in the recent years. Therefore, the government must implement solutions to solve this problem. So you have therefore, and then you have a semicolon before it and a comma after it. And one more time, you could remove the semicolon and use a period. So again, if you have any of these words which are called conjunctive adverbs, however, therefore, for example, for instance, feel free to use a semicolon before them and a comma after them. Today's lesson is not just about the semicolon, it's also about the colons. Now, what's a colon? That's when you have two periods above each other. So you have two, like this one. So that's a colon right here. Now, a colon is used to introduce a list of items, like the example here. The bookstore specializes in 3 subjects. And then you have a list of items, art, comma, architecture, and graphic design. So if you're gonna mention a list, 3 items or more, use a colon. This is how it works. One more example. You may be required to bring many things, sleeping bags, pens, utensils, and warm clothing. So you have 4 items here, and we have a colon before them. One more example. I want the following items, butter, sugar, and flour. So you have a colon and so on. I need an assistant who can do the following. Input data, write reports, and complete tax forms. So you have a list of verbs, and before the list of verbs, you have a colon. Now, please be careful. Do not use a colon when the listed items are incorporated into the flow of the sentence. I'm going to explain to you what that means. Don't worry about that. Okay, so you have this example. The bookstore specializes in art, architecture, and graphic design. Now, if you say the bookstore specializes in colon, art, architecture, and graphic design, that's wrong. Why is it wrong? I'll tell you why it's wrong. Because simply you cannot stop the sentence here. You cannot stop it here. In all the previous examples, you could actually stop the sentence at this part. You could say the bookstore specializes in 3 subjects and then stop. And the sentence will be grammatically correct. And you look at the second example, you may be required to bring many things. Stop. The sentence again will be grammatically correct. One more example. I want the following items and then stop. No problems. I need an assistant who can do the following and then stop. but you can't stop the sentence here. So if you can't stop the sentence at the colon, then don't use a colon in this situation. One more example. I want butter, sugar, and flour. Yeah, you cannot say I want colon, butter, sugar, and flour because you can't stop. If you say I want the following, then you can stop. But at this part, you can't. Now let's practice. Please take some time. Look at this exercise right here. What you need to do is decide if you're going to use a semicolon or a colon in any of these sentences. Now, be careful. Some of these sentences don't require any changes. So you are not going to change anything. You're not going to use a semicolon or a colon here. I'll give you some time to read. If you want to pause the video, you can do that. And then I'm going to show you the solutions. Okay, so these are the answers. Let's look at the first one. The bouquet had her favorite flowers, daisies, carnations, and roses. It seems here that we have a list of items, daisies, carnations, and roses. So before the list of items, we're supposed to use a colon. So right here, we're going to use a colon like this. And now the sentence becomes grammatically correct. Okay, let's move on to the next item. Please give me some time. I don't want to be rushed. So you can see that we have two separate sentences here in this part. Please give me some time. I don't want to be rushed. Okay, so since we have two separate sentences, we're supposed to separate them. So we can either use a full stop or a colon. So we can use a full stop like that, or we can use a semicolon. I'm sorry, I meant to say a semicolon like that. Okay. So remember that if you use a full stop, it's correct, no problems. If you use a semicolon in this situation, it is correct without any problems. Number 3, I would like to leave early in the morning. Therefore, I'm going to bed soon. As we said before, therefore is a conjunctive adverb. So before the conjunctive adverb, we're supposed to use a semicolon like that and a comma here after it. And now the sentence is grammatically correct. Roberto cannot decide among 3 careers: dentist, veterinarian, or physical therapist. So we have a list of items one more time: dentist, veterinarian, or physical therapist. So we need to introduce the list of items using a colon like that. And now the sentence is correct. Number 5, the players have only one goal. They want to win the Stanley Cup. So these are 2 separate sentences, which means that we're supposed to use a semicolon. And as I said before, if you want to use a period, definitely it's acceptable to use a period in this situation. I answered the phone. No one seemed to be on the other side of the line. So we could use a semicolon here. Remember that after the semicolon, you don't use a capital letter. Look, in small here, small here, small, no capital letters after the semicolons. So even though the semicolon is like the full stop, or the period, but a full stop is usually followed by a capital letter, whereas a semicolon does not require the use of a capital letter. Number 7, I need a few items at the store: clothespins, a bottle opener, and napkins. So this is a list of items. We're supposed to use a colon here. Okay. At the camp, the children were divided into 2 groups: those who know how to swim and those who don't. Already we separated the list of items by a column, so no problems. We don't have any problems here in this situation. And yes, we could consider 2 items to be a list of items. It's okay, it's acceptable. So we're not gonna make any changes in sentence 8. It's already correct as it is. Number 9, Max and Sue have been to the Caribbean many times. However, they haven't visited St. Lucia. So, okay, we have however, which is a conjunctive adverb. Before it, we're supposed to use a semicolon. Oops, semicolon. Yep, okay. And then after it, we're supposed to use a comma. One more time, if you decide to use a full stop here, it's completely acceptable. And then instead of the small letter, you're going to use a capital letter. Finally, Ashley was late for the rehearsal. Semicolon, she's usually late. No mistakes here in this sentence because we already divided the 2 parts using a semicolon, so we don't need to make any changes. I hope today's lesson was useful for you. And if you have any questions or if there's anything that you don't understand, feel free to send me a message and I will explain any problems that you have. Thank you so much for your time.